You know how sometimes you stumble across something online, maybe just a little bit of chatter, and you get this feeling, this inkling that there's a much, much bigger story underneath.
Oh, absolutely. Like pulling on a thread.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where we're going today. We are diving headfirst into this really sprawling story, spans decades actually, and somehow it ropes in Machine Gun Kelly, Eminem, Diddy, and unbelievably, the legacies of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls.
It's a wild connection of dots, isn't
It
it?
really is. We've
Yeah.
been piecing together this timeline, tracing how what looked like just a throwaway tweet back in 2012 sort of ignited this chain reaction. We're talking industry whispers, diss tracks, serious allegations. It's a whole web.
Yeah, very tangled web.
So our mission really is to unpack the key moments, look at the claims being made, and try to understand the impact of it all. We want to dig into those surprising details, but also see the bigger picture.
Makes sense. And it all starts kind of unbelievably with
Right.
that tweet, MGK 2012. Seems so minor in retrospect, but
Yeah.
wow.
Right. So, May 2012, Machine Gun Kelly tweets something about Eminem's daughter. She was 16 at the time. And then nothing. Silence. For 5 years.
Well, not exactly nothing. It wasn't public, but the feeling was there. MGK himself hinted later that Eminem wasn't happy, that maybe there was some blackballing going on.
5 years of that. Can you imagine? Just feeling that unspoken pressure. Like you said, whispers, industry rumors. It's like this massive silent treatment potentially happening behind the scenes.
It really shows you the kind of power dynamics at play, doesn't it? Someone like Eminem, his status, even perceived disapproval could, seriously impact an up-and-coming artist's career.
Yeah.
That long silence kind of underscores how things can happen off the radar.
Definitely. And then boom, 2018, it all explodes into the open.
Yeah.
MGK drops Rap Devil.
Yeah, the title itself, a direct shot at Eminem's rap god. No subtlety there.
Meaning it all. But here's where it gets really layered. The lyrics, they weren't just about MGK and Eminem trading blows. He mentions Diddy calls him Puffin' Jimmy Iovine from Interscope.
Right, he says Eminem supposedly called them furious about that tweet from years ago.
Exactly. Think about that. Eminem, this rap giant, supposedly so bent out of shape about a 5-year-old tweet that he's allegedly calling up major label heads. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
It really does. It shifts it from just artists beefing to potentially using industry muscle, pulling levers, bringing Diddy and Iovine into it definitely broadens the whole thing, shows you that network at the top.
So, naturally, Eminem hits back. Hard with Killshot. And this is where the whole thing takes a much darker, more serious turn.
That one line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amidst all the jabs at MGK, he drops this bombshell. But Kells, the day you put out a hit is the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out that got Pac killed.
Whoa, just like that.
Hmm.
Publicly linking Diddy, even hypothetically, to Tupac's murder in a diss track.
It's audacious, right? To throw that into a rap battle, it instantly connects this, current feud back to one of the biggest tragedies in hip-hop history.
And then he adds that little disclaimer at the end.
And I'm just playing Diddy, you know I love you. What was that? Sarcasm. Covering his tracks after saying something so inflammatory.
Who knows? But reports came out later that Diddy, despite staying quiet publicly, was absolutely furious, understandably.
You'd think. So was Eminem just stirring the pot? Or did he actually believe it? Regardless, he threw that accusation out there. And while the main focus back in 2018 stayed on the MGK beef, that line, it lingered. And it definitely came roaring back recently.
Absolutely. Fast forward to 2024, and it resurfaces in a big way. Eminem's track Fuel. The lyrics there are, well, they're pretty direct.
Super direct. He spells out raper, leaving out the PE, then says, Diddy, what rest in peace, Biggie and Pac, both of y'all should be living. I mean, there's zero ambiguity there.
None. And then the reference to Keefe, get him.
Right. Which immediately makes you think of Dwayne Keefe Davis, who was arrested relatively recently in connection with Tupac's murder. It feels like all these threads, MGK's tweet, the diss tracks, the Tupac murder mystery, Biggie's death, they're all starting to converge now.
It shows how deep these stories run, how ingrained those suspicions about Tupac and Biggie are. Eminem's lyrics are almost like a running commentary on this decades-long saga.
And speaking of digging into those suspicions, there's the Rotten Mango podcast. They did this multi-part series, really zeroing in on the allegations around Diddy.
Yeah, I saw that. They pulled together a lot of information that's been floating around online.
Right, and they were careful to say, this is all ongoing, no legal conclusions yet, presumption of innocence, and their sources are what's publicly available. They also gave a heads up about some really heavy themes: substance abuse, assault, violence, trafficking, serious stuff.
Important context. So their series essentially brought a lot of disparate allegations under one umbrella.
Pretty much. Part 1 touched on Cassie's lawsuit, some other stranger theories. Part 2 mentioned yacht parties, Kim Porter's death. But Part 3, that's the one focusing on these 13 mysterious deaths that online communities have linked to Diddy over the years. And obviously, Tupac and Biggie are central to that part.
Putting their deaths in that context, alongside others, it definitely shifts the perspective. It forces you to ask if their murders were just about the rivalry or part of something bigger, maybe darker.
It's chilling. Especially when you think about Diddy's massive hit, I'll Be Missing You. That tribute to Biggie, won Grammys, was everywhere.
A huge song. Defined that era for many.
But now, with these persistent theories, the irony is just staggering. If there's any truth to the rumors, performing that song, mourning Biggie alongside his widow, it's hard to even process.
And the detail about the sample from Sting's Every Breath You Take.
Oh, yeah. That he didn't clear it initially and ended up giving Sting 100% of the royalties, it adds this whole other layer of, well, strangeness to it all, like a tribute built on a shaky foundation itself.
It's another piece of the complex puzzle around that song in that time.
Rotten Mango also revisited Tupac's own account of that 1994 shooting at Quad Studios in New York. Remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. He got shot in the lobby.
5 times. Then he gets in the elevator, goes up to the 8th floor, and who's there? Biggie, Diddy, and 40 other people working on an album called Conspiracy, believe it or not.
Wow.
The irony. Tupac said the vibe was just off. Nobody made eye contact. Diddy kept his distance. Tupac felt totally alone, deeply suspicious, having literally just been shot downstairs. He asked them, "Do you know who shot you? Do you know why?" He said he had no idea. It's such a haunting picture.
Absolutely. That scene says so much about the paranoia, the fractured trust in the air back then. Tupac feeling that way, wounded and vulnerable. It speaks volumes.
And you really can't talk about Tupac without getting into the whole Tupac is still alive thing.
Oh, that's a whole cultural phenomenon in itself, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
People genuinely believe he faked his death, that he's hiding out somewhere. I mean, he was such a huge, controversial figure. Vice President Dan Quayle was slamming his music. The FBI was watching him.
He wasn't just a rapper. He was a voice tackling racism, poverty, injustice. That made him a target for some, a hero for others.
He talked about feeling like an outsider even after getting famous critique materialism. His background, too. His mom and aunt were involved with the Black Panther Party. Deep roots in activism.
That context is key. It fuels the idea that maybe he had to disappear, that the forces against him were too powerful.
And his personal life was just as intense. That bond with Jada Pinkett Smith, the secret thing with Madonna, that breakup letter that got auctioned off.
Right.
He had that famous quote, "If you can't find something to live for, then you best find something to die for." And then he died at 25.
So young.
Then you get the sightings, the bodyguard claiming he helped Tupac escape to Cuba, supposedly with Fidel Castro's help through his aunt who was living there.
The Cuba theory. Yeah, I remember that. Didn't the bodyguard then supposedly die before showing proof?
Yep. And then he reappeared, claiming he had audio and video evidence, which never materialized. It's just layer upon layer of intrigue.
These theories, however unlikely, show how much he meant to people. The refusal to let go, the need to believe he's still out there somewhere.
Don't forget the Machiavelli album theory, released after his death. The name change, the Machiavelli connection, faking death to fool enemies. People looked for anagrams, hidden messages.
Alive K. Yeah, all that stuff.
Plus, all the posthumous music with lyrics people dissected for clues about a return. And then, get this, a supposed Kim Porter memoir pops up on Amazon in 2024 under the name Jamal T. Millwood.
Wait, Jamal T. Millwood. Isn't that one of the names connected to the Tupac is alive theories?
Exactly. It's just bizarre. The connections keep looping back.
It's like a self-perpetuating mythology. Wild.
So after decades of theories and cold trails, September 2023 rolls around, and Dwayne Keefe D. Davis gets arrested for Tupac's murder.
Keefe D. calls himself the Compton Street legend. He'd been talking for years, hadn't he? In interviews, even wrote a memoir.
Yep, and claiming that Diddy put out $1 million hit on Tupac. Keefe D. admitted being in the car when Tupac was shot, but said he wasn't the shooter. And crucially, he claimed Diddy never paid him that $1 million.
His arrest was huge. Suddenly, there's a possibility of actual legal accountability after almost 30 years. His claims about the bounty, though, still unproven in court, add this massive piece to the puzzle.
And then just very recently, October 2024, this lawsuit from Ashley Parham lands, and the details are incredibly disturbing.
What's the story there?
She alleges that back in 2018, she was at a bar, overheard a FaceTime call between some guy named Shane and Diddy. She made a comment, apparently, saying she believed Diddy was involved in Tupac's murder.
Okay.
And Diddy allegedly threatened her directly over the call, saying, "You're going to pay for that."
Wow.
The lawsuit then describes this alleged setup: lured to Shane's apartment, then allegedly assaulted brutally by Diddy and his team. The details are graphic knife threats, attempted forced IUD insertions, sexual assault with objects being recorded, threats to her family, even a call to Diddy's mother, who allegedly yelled at her.
Good grief. Those are horrifying allegations. The level of detail, and specifically connecting the alleged assault back to her comment about Tupac, that directly ties the historical suspicion to a current, very serious claim.
Absolutely. Again, these are allegations in a lawsuit, not proven facts. But the specificity is chilling.
Extremely chilling.
Ugh.
Has Diddy responded?
His legal team typically denies these kinds of allegations forcefully, but the suit is out there now. It even mentions this surreal moment where one of Diddy's own guys allegedly pulled a gun on Diddy after Ashley mentioned Tupac. She says she eventually escaped, nicked Diddy with a knife trying to get away, and ran to a neighbor. She also claims the sheriff's department didn't take her seriously at first.
That detail about the gun, it just adds to the chaotic, dangerous picture being painted. And the alleged lack of initial police response is another recurring theme in stories like this, unfortunately.
Online, people are divided. Some are skeptical, others point to the specific details, connecting it to things Lil Rod alleged about Diddy's security and connections. Ashley using her real name is also seen by many as significant.
The public reaction is always complex, but connecting it to other allegations, like Lil Rod's, can create a sense of a potential pattern for some observers. Her going public with her name definitely takes courage.
It also makes you think back further, like to that terrible tragedy in 1991, the City College fundraiser.
Oh, right. The Stampede.
Yeah.
9 people died.
Yeah, an event promoted by a young Puff Daddy, supposedly for AIDS outreach, though the charity itself was questioned. It was massively overcrowded. Accounts from the time paint Diddy as shockingly unconcerned, just wanting to get his stuff and leave while people were dying.
And his comments later were pretty awful, weren't they? Blaming the victims?
In Vibe magazine, yeah. Blamed a lack of self-love in the Black community, just incredibly callous and detached. A judge did find him partially liable in civil court, and there were settlements, but many families felt he never truly took responsibility or apologized sincerely.
That incident, so early in his career, really provides some stark historical context for, well, for everything that followed. The alleged lack of accountability seems like a potential pattern some are pointing to.
And then you layer on things like Suge Knight's claims, the infamous boiled egg test allegation.
Yeah. Coming from Suge, Diddy's biggest rival back then, head of death row. You take it with a grain of salt, maybe, but it's still a disturbing image.
It paints a picture of a certain kind of environment, doesn't it? Even if exaggerated. Suge's in prison now for manslaughter, of course, but their rivalry was legendary. Bad boy versus death row.
Huge amounts of money and ego involved there. Intense competition.
All of this played out against the backdrop of Tupac versus Biggie, East Coast versus West Coast.
2 incredible talents caught in the middle. Tupac the poet, the activist voice.
Changes, yeah. Criticizing everything. Biggie, the master storyteller from the East Coast, discovered by Diddy. That smooth flow, never wrote lyrics down, apparently.
Amazing. They were friends at first, right? Tupac helped Biggie early on.
They were, but it fractured after Tupac got shot at Quad Studios in '94. He felt betrayed, especially when Biggie dropped "Who Shot Ya" soon after. Tupac took that personally, like Biggie was mocking him or even admitting something.
That song definitely added fuel to the fire. Whether it was intended that way or not, the timing was terrible. And some say Diddy pushed for its release to create buzz.
Then Suge Knight swoops in, signs Tupac to death row while he's in prison, pays his bail. The goal was clearly to take down Bad Boy.
And Suge wasn't shy about it, calling out Diddy at award shows.
Things got violent. Suge's friend was shot and killed, allegedly by Diddy's bodyguard. Then Tupac released "Hit 'Em Up," probably the most vicious diss track ever.
Brutal. Diddy tried to downplay the beef in interviews, but it was clearly out of control. Death threats were flying around. Tupac believed the cops knew who shot him in '94, but did nothing.
It was just a powder keg waiting to explode. And then it did. September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas, after the Tyson fight.
Tupac was shot 4 times. Suge Knight was injured too.
Tupac died 6 days later. He was 25. The main suspect quickly became Orlando Anderson, the Crip involved in that fight earlier that night. But the Vegas police investigation, widely seen as botched.
Yeah, Anderson was never charged in Tupac's murder. He himself was killed 2 years later. The LVPD claimed the fight and the shooting weren't connected, which nobody really bought.
After Tupac died, the East-West tension went through the roof. Diddy denied any involvement, obviously. Biggie was reportedly devastated.
It must have been terrifying for him, too, being the other face of that rivalry.
Then just 6 months pass. March 9th, 1997. Biggie's in L.A. promoting his new album. After a party, sitting at a red light, he's shot and killed.
Unbelievable. Diddy's bodyguard, Gene Deal, was right there. Held Biggie as he died. Biggie was only 24.
And Diddy, who'd been mostly behind the scenes as a producer, suddenly steps into the spotlight himself, releases his own album, No Way Out with I'll Be Missing You, becomes this global superstar.
Right in the aftermath of Biggie's death. The timing. It raised eyebrows even back then.
And the conspiracy theory started immediately. Was Biggie's death retaliation for Tupac? Did Suja order it? Or the one that keeps coming back, did Diddy have something to do with it?
The theory being, Biggie wanted to leave Bad Boy. Gets publishing rights back.
That's the one. Allegedly, Biggie felt he wasn't getting his due, wanted more control, and Diddy refused to let him go or give up the publishing. Biggie's mom, Valletta Wallace, recently reacted to that video of Diddy assaulting Cassie.
Right.
She said she wanted to slap him. The feelings are clearly still raw.
Understandably so.
Mm.
And Gene Deal, the bodyguard, he's consistently said Bad Boy didn't provide adequate security for Biggie in L.A., that they should be held accountable.
So you have Keefe D claiming Diddy put a hit on Tupac, and these long-standing rumors Diddy might have been involved in Biggie's death too, possibly over business. It's a lot.
It really is. And now people are looking back at I'll Be Missing You with a whole new, much darker perspective. Comments online.
Yeah. It casts a long shadow over Diddy's legacy, his whole impact on the culture, especially black culture, which is something Freddie P. mentioned recently. Victims aren't trying to tear down a black icon just because. They want their stories heard, especially now that things are coming out.
The timing is significant. Cassie's lawsuit seemed to open the floodgates.
And now Tupac's family has hired Alex Spiro, a big-name lawyer, to look into links between Diddy and Tupac's murder.
Spiro. He represents some high-profile people. Didn't he also represent Mayor Eric Adams?
He did. The same mayor who gave Diddy the keys to NYC and then took them back. And Adams is facing his own federal investigation now. It's like this weird convergence of legal worlds.
It really is a tangled web.
Tupac's brother also recently said he doesn't really believe Diddy's past denials anymore. And Keefe D's trial is coming up soon. Remember, Keefe D apparently made a deal back in '09 to give info on Diddy and Tupac to get leniency on drug charges.
Right, and then he just started talking openly about it in interviews before his arrest, complaining about not getting paid the million.
The sheer audacity is kind of mind-blowing. Jason, whose brother died in the City College stampede, he feels like karma is finally catching up. 50 Cent is obviously having a field day online with all this.
Yeah, 50 Cent has been relentless. Some people online are even suggesting it goes beyond just Diddy, maybe a wider conspiracy.
Who knows? But hearing Gene Deal talk about the lack of security for Biggie right before he was killed, it just adds to that feeling that something was deeply wrong. It really does feel like maybe, just maybe, things are finally starting to come to light after all this time.
The idea of karma, of decades-old secrets finally surfacing.
Yeah.
It's a powerful narrative playing out right now.
Okay, just catching our breath here, trying to wrap our heads around the sheer amount of information, all these connections across decades.
Yeah.
It's genuinely staggering.
It really is. And it's so important to keep saying these are still largely allegations, legally speaking.
Yeah.
Nothing fully proven in court regarding the murders or many of these assault claims against Diddy.
Absolutely. But the consistency of the stories over time, and especially these major new developments, Keefe D's arrest and statements, the Parham lawsuit, the family hiring Spiro, well, it's significant. You can't ignore it.
No, you can't. There were definitely moments putting this timeline together where you just go, aha. You see how things that seem separate might actually link up?
Totally. It can feel overwhelming, for sure. But getting a handle on these layers, the history, what's happening now, it feels important, to understand the whole picture.
Agreed. It provides crucial context.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. With all these people coming forward now, with Keefe D facing trial, with lawyers digging, what secrets buried for decades might finally break the surface?
And what does that mean for the legacies? Not just Diddy's, but Tupac's, Biggie's. The whole industry they shaped. It forces you to think about power, fame, money, and ultimately accountability.
Exactly. What happens when the truth, whatever it is, finally comes out? We'll have to wait and see.